right.
Is that better?
Well, yeah, welcome. I'll get us started real quick with just a little bit of an introduction to tonight's program. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Eric White. I'm the Adult Services Librarian here at the Estes Valley Library. I'm coming up on my year anniversary here. A little bit about our series for folks who are just joining us. Every year since 2011, our community has celebrated community and literacy by coming together in conversation around a single book. This year, it's Finders Keepers by Craig Childs, and I'm honored to be continuing our exploration of the book and the issues around it with tonight's program. We'll have great topics. We'll have great programs on this topic throughout the month. Check it out at estesvalleylibrary.org, and we'll culminate with a visit from Craig Childs on February 6th. So before I introduce our guest, just a few quick words about tonight's program. Fred and I will be in conversation for maybe the first until maybe 6:30, 6:45. And then we'll leave the rest of the time for questions from you. And so I will be taking questions through the chat and passing those along. Feel free to submit questions at any time during the program. And we'll be recording tonight's program in its entirety. So now I'd like to introduce tonight's guest. Fred Mosqueda is a Southern Arapaho tribal historian and elder. He's also the Arapaho coordinator for the Language and Culture program of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma. He works to preserve the history, language, and culture of his people, and through his speaking and writing, educate others about those same things. He's actually visited us in Estes Park before, so I'll let him talk about that. And he was most recently co-creator and designated tribal representative for the newly opened Sand Creek Massacre exhibit at History Colorado in Denver. So thanks for bearing with me through that wordy introduction. And yeah, Fred, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, like you said, first I want to apologize for taking so long. Me and equipment are just not on first name basis, so. But Eric, I appreciate you having me here tonight. I'm always excited to help out there at our in Colorado, which would be our homelands for the Arapahos, the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes here in Oklahoma. So I'm very, very proud to be here. Like you said, I was at Estes Park, and I helped to name the Arapaho girl and women there at the park there on the Big Thompson River. And so that was very exciting. And I got to go there and meet some of the people who were related to the founding women of Estes Park. And it was really exciting. It was cold too, but it was great. I really enjoyed that. And another thing that I encourage everybody to go to if they can, go to history and look at the new Sand Creek exhibit. It really tells a good story. It really tells, and as close to the truth as you can get without getting too gory and all this other stuff. But it was a good effort. There's still some things that they couldn't tell or they wouldn't tell. But anyway, it's pretty good exhibit though. Took many years to get that done, and it wasn't smooth right all the way. It was complicated at times, and we did get upset with each other occasionally, but it's done now, so it's great. But I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Maybe maybe we should start by just like, would you like to just tell us a little bit about your background and kind of the work you've done, whatever you'd like us to know, a little bit about you.
Well, I was born there, and I like to tell this story. As I was born in Canton, Oklahoma, which is a little bitty town in northwest Oklahoma, and it's named after Cantonment, where the Arapahos came in and settled first. Was their first place to settle in the new reservation, and after 1867, after the Medicine Lodge Treaty. And so the town of Canton was named after Cantonment. But I was born in the alley behind the post office. There was a doctor's office in the alley back there. That's all. I really wasn't born in the alley. But anyway, I was born into Little Raven's ugly faces. Wach-a-thay, that's what they call them. And that was Little Raven's band. Little Raven, as you know, was a very prominent Arapaho in Denver. He was very friendly to the people coming into Denver. He also made the comment that he had never been at war with the United States government. And it was true, he didn't. He was a very large advocate for peace with the government, with the Arapahos. But he also was so strong that he probably saved the Arapahos that made it to Oklahoma, just through his negotiations and his caring for his people as he went through the very, very tough times of why we call them the treaty years for the Arapaho tribe. And I was born there. I went to school for 12 years there, graduated there from Canton. I went to Weatherford, Oklahoma, to Southwestern Oklahoma State University, graduated there with a BS degree in psychology. Immediately used my degree to go into the United States Marine Corps. I stayed in the Marine Corps for almost 6 years as a commissioned officer. And then from there, I came out, did all kinds of crazy things, worked in the oil field because of all the money that you could make there. And then finally, when it ran out in 1988, I went to work for the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes. And I've been working for the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes ever since in different capacities. And now, like you said, I'm working as the language and culture coordinator on the Arapaho side. There's also a Cheyenne coordinator. Chester Whiteman is my cohort, you might say. You know, we work together. He takes care of the Cheyenne, I take care of the Arapaho side. We are both NAGPRA representatives plus the Sand Creek representatives for the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes. And so we have done quite a bit of work in the field of NAGPRA. It's not always been again, and when you work with a government, it doesn't go very fast. Sometimes it's not very smooth, but it's rewarding in the end. If you stay and you toe the line, then it becomes rewarding because you get to take care of your ancestors. You get to take care of those that, you know, we really feel bad because in our tribe, there's a way that there's ceremonies, there's ways. You know, we believe that, yes, there's an afterlife, but you can't, it's hard for you to cross over. So there's things that we do here, and you might say here on this planet, on this ground, that we do that our Father has told us to do to help them to get across to where he's at. And that's what we try to do in NAGPRA, is to try to put them in a resting area, because we believe, Arapahos believe, that when a person is laid to rest with all the ceremonies and such, then he should be left alone. He's there. He should be at rest. NAGPRA allows us to go and find these that were either for some reason dug up, some reason they were killed, and their bodies kept, or their bones kept, or their things they were buried with taken away from them. we run into that all the time. And that's where we come in and we say, well, give them back to us so we can put them at rest, so they can travel across and be, you know, for their rewards. And so that is really the hard part, is facing what happened to them, what they've gone through. You know, there's excuse me, just let me relate one story to you. In northwest Kansas, there was an Oddfellows Lodge there, and I won't mention the town, but they had a woman skeleton from the 1880s, and they did some kind of initiation or ceremony with her skeleton. And then the Oddfellows went out of business or something, you know, they quit being there. And so they sold the house. And so this couple bought the house, and they went in and were looking around, and they opened the front room closet, and there she was, still sitting there. And they called the police, and then they called the museum. And the museum came over, and they dated her bones, and they found out that she was from the 1880 and that she was a young female. And so, you know, you when they told us about it and they asked us to come help them, you know, Chester and I immediately went up there, and we made arrangements to take care of her. And we took a drum group, and we took chiefs from both tribes up there to help us with the ceremony. And we went up there, and you know, they buried her in Kansas, in a place that's kind of like it's marked, but it's not marked. It's out of the way, so they'll never be bothered again. And that's what we really liked about it. and it was said that, you know, when we painted her, we did the ceremonies, and then we were singing the songs for her to travel on. And my wife said that they could hear her as she lulued on top of one of the mountain, on top of the hills there, as she was leaving and going on. So to me, you know, that is the reward, to know that she now knows she's at rest, and she went on to the other side to be with our Father. That's what I'm talking about, being rewarding. How long has she been there? Since the 1880s to now. And you know, it was only like maybe 3 years ago that we did this. And so that's just one of the situations that we run into. There's many others that I could tell you about. You know, a farmer plowing his field. He plows a skull up. He goes and puts it on a mailbox and leaves it there. And then somebody sees it, they call the police comes, gets it, goes to the museum. They carbon date it, they test it. They use DNA now, and they can trace it back to our tribe and stuff. But those things happen all the time, you know. And sometimes, you know, the museums themselves, you know, that you have private collectors who came through Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska, South Dakota, where my people were. And there was, when they found out there was like where they were burying them, they would dig them up for their property, for their jewelry, for the artifacts that they had on them. We got to call them artifacts, but you know, what they were buried with. And they would take them and keep them. And they would collect them this way, or they would go through and steal them from the people. But the main thing is when they dug up these graves, they would dig them up, and then they would sell them or keep them in a collection. And then when they were turning to the museum, then the museum would go through and start to contact us about them. Or how would you feel if you went to a museum and you look at some of your people's beadwork, but it's covered in dirt, you know it's dug up, and they got it on display there. And you tell them you can't do that. It's a private collection, you know, or we bought it, or we don't know how it got here, you know, something along them lines. So that's some of the situations, you know, we work with in NAGPRA, you know, today. But the good thing is that the laws are changing, and the museums are really bending over backwards now to help us with the known articles that they have. Now, in a museum, you may have 2 bodies or 2 remains that belong to your tribe. Okay, they go into the back room and dig up, and they got 121, what do they call them? Culturally unidentifiable pieces in there. What do you do then? There's no information on them. There's no documentation on them. They're just back there. You know, so that's really heartbreaking. Okay.
Right. And so then I guess it's a kind of a long process of figuring out kind of what are the next steps for those
Yes,
objects.
sir. Yes. Usually the museums are very good. Sometimes if it's, you know, if it's a private collector, then they usually have a trail. It's not a very good trail, but they can document where this person went and where he was collecting, you know, the main parts where he was collecting. Some of them, the bigger ones, you know, travel clear across the country. So then you have to look at what they have. You know, we can identify what tribe by the beadwork, or by the clothing, or by the instruments that were with the remains. We can do that. And so that if there's material such as that with it, then it's okay. But if there's pieces that's culturally unidentified, then, you know, the museum basically throws it up in the air. And then you say, well, where were they found? Well, we don't know that. Well, where did he go? And then you kind of try to find a trail of where he's at. Then you look at it. Okay, where was our tribe at the time that he was making his rounds in the country? Okay, if he was in Colorado, then we can say, well, we'll claim them. And then of course, then the museum has to follow their protocol, which is to put it in the registrar, the National Registrar. And that gives a certain amount of time for other tribes to put in a claim also. So if we say, you know, Cheyenne Arapaho says, all right, we'll claim them. Okay, if the Utes come across and say, well, he came through the mountains and was with us too, so we want to put a claim in with it, then what do? Well, they have to arbitrate the argument. You know, they have to decide which tribe has the lead. They call it the lead in the repatriation of those remains. Sometimes, like in one area where there was about 121 articles, but it was more or less, you know, we looked at it, and the Utes took the lead. And so we looked at it and said, yeah, it's more likely that it is theirs. When that happens, then we turn around and we write a letter of support for them, you know, in whatever way we want to. It's stated, you know, and usually it's, you know, we will allow them to take the lead. We just ask to be present, because what if part of those belong to our people? If we're there, we can offer prayers, a song, or you know, some part from us that just in case that part of those are our people, then we're helping them to carry on, to go on across. So that's that's one situation. Like you said, it becomes long drawn out because you have to wait. There's time limits on who, how much time you have to put in the claim, such as that. So it does take a while.
Can you say just
And
a little? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, when a person passes away, the Arapahos believe that they're with us for 4 days. They travel around, they can be seen, heard, and they go around, and we know that. But that's 4 days that they get to be with us. The 5th day is when we send them all. We eat with them, we sing for them, we pray for them, we paint them, and then they go on that 5th day. That's 5 days. What about these people that have been sitting there for 1880? I mean, that's heartbreaking.
I might ask you to say just a little bit about NAGPRA for folks, for anyone who doesn't know what that stands for, and maybe a little bit of the history and what it means.
Yes, NAGPRA stands for the Native American Graves Repatriation Act, and that came about in 1990. Congress finally put it into law where that if anybody has any remains that belong to a tribe, either through different situations like I've been explaining, then they must give it back to their people. It's basically what it's saying. It also has where that if you're caught robbing a grave, you can be charged and punished for that. So it does have teeth, and I'm glad it does. But that's what we work with now.
And it sounds like a lot of your work is the kind of research that you're talking about, tracing, figuring out if something is related to your people, and
Yes.
kind of tracing those things through to make sure that the right thing happens.
Usually, like I said, if there's a say a grave that's been found, with all the new constructions that's going on in the world, they're trying to build everything, parking lots or whatever, and if they find the remains of a grave or of somebody, then they can, NAGPRA basically states that you must stop your construction, you must contact a tribal representative from that area, and the tribal representative will come and to try to identify it. And then also we work with the archaeologists and them to get them removed from the area, or either that or to have the construction go around if possible. And that's one thing that that I was going to say. I said at the beginning, we want to leave them alone, but there comes times when the government ain't going to allow you to leave them alone, and that's another situation where we have to work with the archaeologists and to get them removed in the best way, without destroying a lot of property or anything like that. And then we can, then the process starts with NAGPRA. Usually they go to a museum, the museum will publish it, then it goes on like that. But, sometimes, you'll find some that are way, way prehistoric, and they're carbon dating them, to 600 AD, and what do you do with that? So, but yes, a lot of times we are doing research. We are working with the archaeologists right there. They usually have Zoom meetings with us since COVID. You know, they have Zoom meetings. They show us the pictures. They show us everything they can so that we can see them. But we work good with them. You know, it's just that it's not like being there where you can see it. But we try.
So it sounds like those relationships with museums and with archaeologists are more collaborative than they were in the past.
Yes, very much so. Before, you know, you would have, you know, I guess in certain ways, ever how the museum became the ownership or leased or had possession of these articles. Sometimes they were beyond us getting them back. You know, I know there was a situation where it was a headdress of a very famous chief, and the tribe asked, and the tribe said this was stolen, and the museum says no, we have a bill of sale. So, you know, somewhere a bill of sale come up, but the people were saying, you know, we would not sell this article from this chief. So, you know, again, when situations like that, we always lost out. We could never retrieve the articles, you know, no matter what. But since NAGPRA and since there's another law, I can't remember what that was, but anyway, the museums are really working to clear all these remains that they have and try to get them. They're trying very hard to get them back to the right tribe, which, you know, is a very difficult task. But they are really trying. They're allowing us to go look at them. They're allowing us to go and read the documents if there's anything on them. And we follow the collectors and everything, you know, and we try to find out whether this person came through our area, you know. So yes, they are working with us a lot better than they used to. Used to, they'd show you something and that was it. Now we're able to actually put in requests for them through the museum. And some of them go out of their way to show us things that they know belong to us, and they help us to try to get them back. And you know, I have to applaud the museums that work that way with us, because some things are very meaningful and sacred to us. And I look at them and I'll shake my head and wonder, how could they get these things? You know, again, well, they sold it. Well, they did, you know, but these were articles from, you know, our leaders that I had heard stories about and heard about the great things that they done. And so sometimes these collectors were a little bit shady. You know, another thing, you know, it's, yes, so. But, you know, our people have been treated as though they were, you know, they were considered savages. They were considered below normal IQ or intelligence, you know. They were even robbing graves and measuring the skulls to see how much brain capacity we had. And so they came up with a theory that, well, because we had a smaller brain, but we didn't have the brain power that the average settler had. But think about it. The average Arapaho in 1880 was about 5'11". The average Cheyenne was about 6 foot because of their diet, right? What was the diet of the people coming into Colorado? They were what, average 5'8". You know, so, you know, you can't, I just think, you know, some of the crazy things. they used the name of science to do what they wanted to. So,
And these days, it sounds like you're able to work more productively with scientists than before. Like they're not holding out like they were before, and you're able to kind of, are there times when like you're able to collaborate with them to learn more about, to gain knowledge that you might not have had from some of the things that are found?
yes, some of the archaeologists are really outstanding. They really, when they find or called to excavate a grave site, they're really great about calling you and showing you everything. They're not hiding anything from you. They really come out and they show you the articles they have. They tell you that what they think, and they allow you to actually go and look and be with the articles of the ancestors. So yes, they're very professional. I've never and here lately, the ones that we have worked with, there's one particular site in Colorado Springs. They really bend over backwards to help us. They even had one of our tribal members from up north to be there on the site with them throughout the excavation, why the weather allowed it. They're going to start up again in springtime. But yes, it's very, 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 very rewarding to work with that type of individuals. Very professional. The museums are starting to become like that also. The ones that work with the grave repatriation, they really they don't anything that they have in question of the articles that we're looking at, they allow us again to go in and look at them, to handle them if possible, and they try to get us again the long trail about the collector, who might have had it, or who, there's a lot of, sometimes these collectors traded things with each other. One situation is, you remember that the Sand Creek massacre, where they mutilated the bodies and they took pieces and everything. Well, not too long ago, maybe within 4 or 5 years ago, there was a lady in Pennsylvania who said she wanted to return 2 bones. And they said that it had came from the Sand Creek massacre. And they asked her, well, where have they been? She said, they've been in a closet. And so, well, what happened? She said, they told me they wanted to go home. So just so happened she was coming through Denver about the time that we were all there. So she brought him to where we was at. And and that's something that, happens from time to time. Those articles from that massacre show up, but they're handled in a little different way. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And so it sounds like when you're doing that work to repatriate those things, you're actually doing something for that ancestor. You're letting them, it sounds like you're doing something that allows them to move on in their journey. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yes. I say, like, again, say, they're tied to this world. They're tied here because they're, some of them, if like at the massacre, they weren't allowed the ceremonies, the painting and the songs and all that we take care of for them to find their way across. And sometimes I feel as though, this term purgatory, what do you call it? Where
Purgatory.
You're stuck in between place. Yeah, that is where, to me, like, they're stuck at. they're not there and they're not here. They're like just hung in a position. And when we come, then they start to hear the language, because Chester and I will speak to them and we'll talk to them, and then we'll do the ceremonies. And this way they know it. And to me, it's like they put them at rest. There was a situation where we had a remains in a box, and I don't know how long they were there. Chester and I decided, when we found out, well, we're going to bury them. And so when I went in there by myself, started putting, somebody had took all the screws out of the top of the box except for one. And I figured, well, they probably got that far, and then that person let them know they were there. So I put them all back. But as I was doing it, I prayed. And as I was doing it, I talked to them and told them that they were going to go home. When I stood up, it was though I heard them sigh. To me, that was just like they know. And so Chester came and he did the same thing, prayed with them, talked to them. And then we painted the box, and then we carried them down and we put them away the proper way. And we knew then that we had done good. Those situations really mean a lot. And that, to me, they're not stuck there anymore. They've actually went across. In the Arapahos, we believe that there's that place that's across to the west. It's a higher plane up above where we're at. And there's a big old, like a waterfall, or mist, you might say, and you can't see across there. And that's where it's at. That's where they're going to, is over there. On the other side is pure happiness, because they're with our Father. And that's where we try to get them. That's where they got to go.
I see. Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of meaning and satisfaction in that, in being able to do that. So I think what I'll do now is open up, I'd like to open it up to questions from our attendees, because I know they're going to ask better questions than me. So let me start with, one from the chat.
Okay.
How are carbon dating and DNA testing used to assist in determining the ancestry and subsequent repatriation to the proper tribe? So this is kind of a two-part question. And at the times where you're not able to establish, where you're not able to determine that ancestry, are there sort of like multi-tribe ceremonies or processes for those things?
Yes, like when we do run into a situation where, again, that they use that word, culturally unidentifiable. In other words, there's nothing there. There was no jewelry, no beadwork, nothing that could set. And so they do karma date them. And what that does is that gives you the time frame that they were there. Okay, so all the tribes, we have a migration story. We're coming from somewhere to here. And so we have to look at the time, and then we say, well, we weren't there. So then you say, well, what tribe was there? So then that again is a way that we can look and try to narrow it down to see which tribe can take the lead in that. Now, what happens is if that tribe says, no, we don't want to take the lead, then we can take the lead on it. And then we'll put our application in, our request to take the lead. What happens, like you said, is if, in the situation where those that were buried by the Utes, we were invited to go. So what we would do is we would go, but we would observe them doing their ceremony. So, again, we would be in the background, allow them. We usually have a time that we can stand there and pray and in our own way talk to them. But yet the youths would have the lead. Or if it was closer to say North Dakota or South Dakota, maybe that one of the other tribes, Lakota or Dakota, they would take, or Standing Rock, they would take the lead, and we could do that. And they've done the same with us too, when we take the lead on a burial.
And it sounds like from what you were saying earlier that it's important. You mentioned that it was good to be there in case some of those remains came from your people, because it sounds like there's a connection when they hear, they can identify with the language. Yes. And
right, because we don't, you look at me, I'm not wearing any beadwork or anything. So you could probably tell something by my style of hair, but that would be it, in modern day. But, back in the day when we did wear beadwork and everything, we could identify by sight which tribe you were from, or the hairstyle also.
Mm. So let's see. Let me ask, in Oklahoma, where you are, where the Cheyenne and Arapaho of Oklahoma are, do you have a museum or a cultural center, or ways, do you provide ways for non-tribal members to come and learn about the history? Or do you have a kind of the history and culture, or do you have a recommendation for someone?
I think currently we don't have a museum here with the Cheyenne Arapaho tribe, but you remember there is a First American Museum in Oklahoma City, and that has every tribe in Oklahoma is included in that museum. So there's a little piece here, a little piece there of all tribes that are located here in Oklahoma. If that would be a good place to go to start to learn history of the tribes. Once you find the tribe that you want to learn about, then you can call the headquarters or the complex of that tribe, and you can go, and you can, like, if you called and they would send you to me, I would take you and give you a tour of the whole. Of course, we're in all of Northwest Oklahoma, so it might take a couple days, but we're more than happy to educate people. But that's the one of the things that we really try to do is the education. We'll go to schools, we'll go to anywhere that they'll ask us, and we'll go and talk. We really enjoy that.
Let's see. So Kim asks, how often are you, how often for your repatriation work, how often is it that kind of museums and other entities are contacting you, and how often are you having to actively, are you finding out something that you have to actually go and pursue them about?
Constantly. We are working with many museums right now, all the way from Mercyhurst, which is in Pennsylvania, we Chicago, and then some of the other museums, such as Denver, Aurora, there's many museums that we're working with right now. Again, that you don't just go in there and work with them and get it done. They have time frames, and so we have to go through the whole. And plus, it takes a while to identify. And again, we run into that culturally unidentifiable. And then that's when we have to start talking with the other tribes to see what we would like to do, or what we'd like to see done, or who would like to see that. And so, that's just, but it's constant. We have many museums that we're working with right now. We call them, we get them set up, and then of course then you have your timelines that that we try to do as much as we can within the time frames that they have to abide by. So yes.
Do you have any archaeologists on staff in your tribal government?
No, we do not. We work with again the museums and the townships or the county. They usually get those to come in to help. Once they find the remains or see a bone, or that's usually what it is. A bone sticking out of a side of a river or something like that, and then they'll come.
So places that are exposed by something that's exposed by like a natural process, or by like someone plowing up a field or something like that often. Got it.
Sometimes, the weather will do it too. If you get a real strong rain, it'll wash some articles out. Or again, a lot of them nowadays is construction. They'll start construction. And they're good, because a lot of times when they know they're going to dig in an area that may have something, they'll automatically call for a tribal or a NAGPRA representative or a THEPO representative or a tribal representative to be on hand when they go through the area. So that's pretty good. There's a story. I-40 runs straight. Well, there's a place in Yukon where it bends out and then goes back. So I was looking over there, and this older man told me, he said, "You know why this road bends?" And I said, "No." He said, "Because there's a grave here." And they didn't know for sure where that grave was. So when they actually started to grade the ground, they walked behind the graders, waiting for them to dig her up. But luckily, they gave enough room by bending out that they missed her grave. And she's now located and everything like this, but they didn't know for sure where she was at first. So they do, if they know, they will watch for. And this was quite a while ago, in the 60s when they done that.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Gayla asks, as far as the are the young people and the children in your community learning about NAGPRA and repatriation and their history, do you see your work continuing through them in the future?
I would hope so. There is some interest in our ways in our tribe, and we try as best we can to teach. We go out to the communities. We try to teach them, the language. We have a language department. Chester and I, we go out and we try to teach them our traditional and cultural ways. I'm really strong into songs, so I try to keep the songs going too. Those are necessary because the Arapahos have songs for everything. And there's just probably not much of anything you can do that we don't have a song for. And I would love to. We have lost so much. I do not want to lose any more than we already have, because there was so much when I was growing up that is gone. So.
And so part of your work is part of your work kind of preserving that and like documenting and digitizing those things?
We're working on that. We're also we're trying to get that part done too, to digitize the interviews, the songs, the culture, and the traditions. There's a lot of things that we can't. We used to be called backwards because we didn't have anything written down. Well, it was all word of mouth, passed down by word of mouth through stories. Well, since then, there's still some articles that we can't write down yet. They're so sacred that they have to be passed down by mouth. But the social parts, yes, we want to get all that digitized so that our children can have a place to go and see what it is. If they want to know about something, we want them to be able to find it.
See, we have someone who asks, how did you learn to communicate with your ancestors? Did you grow up as a native Arapaho speaker?
When I was born, I was raised, my mother, my grandmother, and my uncle, they all spoke fluent Arapaho. And so I was raised, my grandmother was a big influence on me and my brothers. And because she spoke the language, she spoke it to us all the time. She told us the stories. She was very, she was one of the older women in the communities that they actually interviewed. And she's in the University of Oklahoma archives. And what's strange is, after she passed away, another lady came and did the same thing with my mother, and got her to be interviewed. So yes, we were able to hear the language, and that's how we learned it. And we also learned Canton was a very, very traditional town. We had real strong chiefs. We just had a strong community there of Rapos. So it was easy to learn. I mean, it was always there for us to see and hear.
And I guess not everyone has that. Not everyone in the community has that opportunity. And I'm guessing that's probably part of your work. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, that's true. When I was growing up, the boarding schools were still there, and my mother was my grandmother went to school for 6 years at Cantonment, and the churches ran the schools. And so she went to Mennonite school. Well, my mother, when she was born in the 20s, and the government still, when she was born, she wasn't even a citizen of the United States, and she was automatically forced to go to boarding school. Well, when she had us, she was totally against the boarding schools. And it kind of, we could see, that she hated them. She didn't want us there. She didn't want us, that she would always tell us stories of the things they did to her and everything that can. And so she used to threaten us with it. When we weren't good, I'll send you to Concho. But she never would, but she used to threaten us with it. I guess that's how bad it was. But we stayed in public school. But the thing is that we had that in the home where we grew up. We had very, very strong Arapahos in the home.
Let's see. this is getting away from some of the artifact related
Yes.
things and into other areas, but I know you've been involved in efforts to rename let's see, what, like, I think what used to be called Mount Evans is now Mount Blue
Yes.
Sky. Can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about your work there?
Yes, you remember, and I hate to say that, it came from something that happened bad, and then the country started changing. It became more open to change back to I always call myself an Indian, not a Native American, but it started to come back, so that they were asking us, what's your opinion? What could you do this? And the situation came up. And they said, let's change the name. And so we sit down and I said, well, and the thing is that here in Oklahoma, like I told you, we have two tribes, the Cheyennes and the Arapahos. Well, we don't make decisions for one tribe. I mean, the northern tribes can do that because they're by themselves, and that's what happened, with Squaw Mountain. It was done strictly by the Cheyenne, from a Cheyenne tribe, and it's a Cheyenne name now. Well, here in Oklahoma, we have to find something that fits both tribes. Chester and I, we do that. We don't think just for our tribe. We think of both tribes because that's our people. So we were sitting there, and our offices are across the hall from each other. And I was talking to him, and I said, we got to find a name that covers both tribes. We was throwing stuff around and everything like that. And so I walked back into my office, and all of a sudden he just hollers from his office, Blue Sky, and just hit me. Dang, great name. Cheyennes have a ceremony for everything in life every year called Blue Sky. And the Arapahos were called Blue Sky people. And so we said, let's try that. Well, Paul Stidler of the Wilderness Foundation there, he contacted me and wanted to co-author with us a name to change. And when I brought that name up to him, he liked it. So Paul and I co-authored the application to change that mountain to Mount Blue Sky. And that's how it started. And so we started in, and there was the Randy Willock of the Clear Creek County. He got all his commissioners together to support it. There's a lot of people involved. I can't even name them all, who all stepped forward and helped us with this renaming. And it's going to get done. It really, there for a while, it was hard going. We had, they have a lot of people who still believe the name shouldn't be changed. We have a lot of people believe that it should be changed. I mean, it should stay the same, but it should be for his granddaughter. And they asked me, they said, why are you down so much on the name? And I told them, if you can show me one good thing that he done for my people, I will stand up and wave the flag and say, this is what he did good. They could find nothing that he did good for my people. He done all kinds of good things. He built a railroad. He did this. He did this. He got statehood and all this other stuff. But he never done one good thing for my people. So I can't say good. I don't hate his granddaughter or his relatives. They had nothing to do with what he did. So it was a good thing. And the thing is that if you think about it, it's such a beautiful name. You know,
And you mentioned, is it official yet, or is it still working its way through the process?
it's still in the process. I think the BGN will meet next month, and we're hoping that it will be on the agenda, and that will be the last step necessary for the renaming.
Got it. Okay. So we have someone who asks, you've talked a lot about working with human remains through NAGPRA.
Mm.
Have you also worked with ceremonial and sacred object repatriation? If so, can you elaborate on that aspect a little?
There's been some articles such as war bonnets. There's also been some articles that were taken out of the graves and taken off the bodies that we've repatriated. The war bonnets we keep because they are still alive, you know, kind of. But the articles that were buried must go back in the ground. We can't keep them because they were already put to rest once. So they need to go back in. So we always make sure that those articles are placed back even if we have to bury them, you know, separately or whatever, how we do it. And we sometimes we'll put them together. You know, there may be articles from 3 or 4 different grave sites we'll put together, but we'll make sure that, you know, they are buried. The sacred items.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Those, you got to remember, a sacred item has life to it. And that life, until you do it a certain way to put it away and let that life go on, it's still alive and it still will take care of us. So those items that aren't buried but have been either collected, stolen, bought, or, you know, otherwise the collector got it somehow, we keep those items and we have to handle them depending on what they are, is how we handle them. You know, you have to be very, very careful because, you know, we fear our Father because our Father gives us power, and that power never lessens. So if you don't do it right, it can hurt you. It can hurt a bunch of people. So you always be very, very careful, and you always be as solemn and respectful as you can be when you handle our sacred items.
I think that's also, yeah, that was a new way of thinking for me in reading about some of these things and listening to think about the idea of an object, you know, having power that way.
Yes. And you remember our Father is all powering, so his power never stops. So no matter how old it is, whatever he put on there is still there. So.
And did you have to, when something has, you know, something that was dug up and has to be reburied, did you have to come up with new ceremonies or rituals or processes for like a reburial?
No, we just bury them the way we know, the way we've known forever, the way that was passed down that I know is how we do it. You know, the Cheyennes have a way to do theirs. We have a way to do ours. And so if one of us takes the lead over the other, then we will stay in that tribal ceremony, you know. But if we're not sure, then sometimes we'll we'll put them together so that we make sure again that, you know, we're covering everything that we can.
Let's see. Well, thanks for that. And Karen asks, do you and Chester deal with any remains from the Smithsonian? And how is the Smithsonian dealing with their holdings?
Chester has been at this much longer than I have. And there was a time when the Smithsonian did allow our tribe to go and repatriate remains that were there. And so again, the Smithsonian is works very well with us, you know. Again, they have tons and tons of stuff, but the remains, you know, they know that they needed to be put back to rest. So they worked with us, and they went up and got them and brought them back to Concho here in Oklahoma, and they buried them here with full Cheyenne ceremonies.
We have someone. Okay, so let's see. How do you, when you need to rebury something, how do you decide where to rebury?
We have an area here in Concho that's the tribal cemetery, and that we they kind of set aside, or that we can they allow us to use. The government does, our tribal government allows us to use this area to bury our ancestors. So we do have room and area here.
Let's see, and we had someone asking, we had someone ask about land back, and I watched your panel, the panel that you were on for Right Relationship Boulder, and
Yes.
I did a little research myself after that, and it was very, very little research, but I had a hard time finding like a single definition of land back and what that means. Can you talk a little bit about what that term means to you?
Well, you know, it's still kind of vague to me yet, but Boulder is wanting us to get back, is wanting us to come back into Colorado. So they're offering us as a tribe areas of land that they will give back to us, and that we can that we can use, you know, in different ways. And so we don't want to come back here and just take. We want to be partners with Boulder, you know. So we're looking at them and we're asking them, okay, you know, what's available, what we're going to do, what is it, you know, what, you know, there's a lot of questions still that we're still discussing with them on what we should do. You know, yes, we want to come back to Colorado. Yes, we appreciate it, but we want to be a good neighbor. We don't want to just come in and, you know, maybe put a powwow ground there and that's it. We want to do something that will be good with Boulder too, and good for us too. So yes, that's what we're working on now.
I see. So it sounds like it's still in those kind of initial phases of kind of figuring out
Yes.
how to be partners.
Yes. And there's other groups in Boulder that we have been talking to, you know, the regenerative agricultural group. They have some wonderful ideas on what we could do there. And, you know, we've been talking with them. You know, there's other, you know, of course, we're always interested again in the education part. what can we do to educate, to bring that education? A lot of people there see the avenues, Arapaho Avenue. They live in Niwot, and they see Niwot Trail, they see Left Hand Trail. Who is he? Who are the Arapahos? Well, we want them to know who we are, what we did there, where we did it there. We want to provide all that. And that's one of the things that, we looked at, the old Victorian house up there in Boulder. We thought about, well, can we put a learning center in there? That's one ideal that came up. And again, we're open because we would like to put an education center there. Somebody said, put a consulate there. I said, that's a great idea. So, again, but it's still, we're not, 100% set on anything yet. Of course, I'm just a representative of the tribe. The governor, the lieutenant governor, they're the ones that's going to put their signature on the line. So what I do is I come out and I represent them. I take all the information back to them. They're the ones that's going to do the negotiation with the city of Boulder or any other place here in Denver. They will. I'm just the worker.
Right. They do it from the standpoint of a sovereign government. And that's why you said consulate.
Yes. Right.
Got it.
Right. Because we still have that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, so we have a question. How can you tell us about how your people's interaction with the land that we now call Rocky Mountain National Park? Like, were you there seasonally, or how did that work?
You have to remember that the Arapahos, we more or less wintered on the Front Range, because if you ever wintered in Colorado, the best place to be is right next to the mountains in the Boulder Valley or the Estes Park, or it's mild winters there. And plus you got to remember there was a food source there at all times. There in Boulder, they said there was a herd of buffalo that lived in there. Well, that's the food source for all winter long. Perfect. Estes Park, they said that there was a elk herd that lived there that would come down and winter there. That was a food source. So that's what we did, is we wintered on the Front Range. From there, we would move, when the springtime came, we would move out into the plains. We would have our ceremonies more out into the plains. There's two herds of buffalo, or there used to be. Remember, there was a northern herd and a southern herd. To me, I think they crossed paths on the East Plains of Colorado. So there was always a constant flow of food there, because we migrated with the flow of the buffalo. So the two herds kept us here. It was the perfect place. So, we moved throughout here. There's a lot of places in the Boulder area where we had ceremonies for the societies and for where they danced, and there's also places they fasted there. And so there's a lot of ties that we still have, with National Rocky Mountain, Estes Park, and you remember Rocky Mountain was almost a path into the mountains, and we spent a lot of time, becoming warriors in those mountains. So
I see. Okay. And I think your organization also, or your in your role, you probably also work with folks from the national park on cultural protection and like when something's found there or something needs to be interpreted.
we are Chester and I and Anthony Spotted Wolf and Chris Tallbear. We're representatives at the national park at Eads, Colorado, at the Sand Creek Massacre site. We're representatives there. We are there to well, we're kind of like the on-site experts of the tribe that helps them to tell the story of that site. And the middle part of it is land that's still held in trust for the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes. So we do own land there. And then we also work with some of the state parks, like here in Oklahoma, we work with the Ouachita State Park. We work with all the parks, Romano's, Fort Supply. We also do a lot of work with other entities that they're trying to hold on to history. We go to the forts. Bent's Fort is a good place to go. That our history is rich there. We also go into other ones. I spent a little time at Fort Riley, and whatever places our people were tied into, we try to go if they ask us, and to provide education at these sites. So yes, we are involved with some of them. Can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted.
There you go.
Sorted now. Do you have any plans to come back and see us in Estes Park?
Forever, I will be there. I want to come and be there. It is a very beautiful place. I'm gonna tell you, when I want to walk the path, the trail up there. They want me to go up there. And when I walk in Colorado, the town could be there, but if I can get off close to the water, close to the trail, I can hear the water, I can smell the vegetation, I can feel, I can look down and see the plants and the trees that we use and that are medicines. They're all still here. And when I walk through there, I can hear, I was at a school and I was talking like that about how the land, me and my wife were standing there and we're talking about how this is here, this would be a good place to camp. He said in the evening times, he said he can come out and he can hear them singing. That's powerful because we're still here. It still calls us. This land does, because it took care of us. It took good care of us. Everything we needed was here. We still go back and get medicines. We still go back and fast and such in Colorado. So yes, Estes Park is so beautiful. The name of it is Hetkaena. It goes around in a circle. Is the name of Estes Park. That's how we call it. Yeah.
Can I try saying it?
Hat.
Hetkaena?
Like hat. Yeah. Hetkaena.
Hetkaena.
It goes around in a circle. Yeah.
Well, whenever you're ready to come visit us, we also welcome you back.
Yes.
Can
Can you tell Jeffrey I said hi?
I will do that. And
Yes.
yeah, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your taking the time to be here and talk to us.
Yes.
It means a lot. And
If I didn't get a chance to read any of the questions in the chat, but if you can leave my information for them to contact me if they like, because I think it's important that they know as much as they can. I always say education is good, and it is. There's a lot of things I want to know what's going on here. I mean, in what are you doing in Estes Park? I want to know. Because when I walk it, I see it as we don't see land in the same way. Some people can look at land and say, I see a Walmart right here, I see a KFC over here, or something. When we look at land, we listen to it, and it tells us, what it has. It talks to us. It feels us. And that's how we look at it. We look at it like, how does it take care of us? And the same point, you have to take care of it too. You can't abuse it. If you abuse it, you lose. Something's going to leave. So you only take what you need. When you come back next year again, when you need it, it's going to be regrowed. It's going to be there for you. And that's how we look at land. Even to this day, in this modern age, us that's got this life, that live this life, we see that land like that. And that's what the Front Range is. Beautiful place.
I think that's a good place to leave it with something we can kind of take away and keep in mind. So with that, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who attended and gave their questions. Thanks to the Friends and Foundation who helped make this possible. And I'll pass along any resources that were mentioned here. And thank you so much, Fred. And have
one thing before we go. Remember one thing: we don't have "bye" in our language. There's no such thing as "bye," because we always think we know that we're going to see you again. So we always say, "Hatchet henana betha." I'm going to see you again. Hey?
We'll see you again.
All
right. Take care.
Okay.